Hello, Star Citizens, and welcome to another video for today. And this one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to do a lot of theory crafting in this, but maybe we get it right, maybe we get it wrong, we'll see. But I also really want everybody to focus on putting your ideas in the comments on this one, because I think this is like this is a community conversation that we could start having now that we are seeing some of the RSI ships get finished, and moving forward. I think it's time to start kind of doing some guesswork on who's going to be next. And I have some theories, so I just wanted to share them with you and see what you think. All right. Yeah, ship contest is still going on. I still don't know which ship is going to be. Right now it's still looking like the Vulture, but we'll see. I don't think we're going to get to 5,000 subscribers yet. But if you've been sharing the channel with your orgs and stuff, I appreciate it. Keep going. And if we reach it this month, of course, that ship, the ship that I give away is of course going to be much higher. But let's get into this, because I want to show you this list that I found. So this is the logbook. This is us.citizen-logbook.com/ship-list.html. But if you just type in Star Citizen Logbook, I'm pretty sure it'll just come up. Star Citizen Logbook, list of ships and vehicles. So I like this because it's just a pretty simple, list that you can look at. But when I started thinking of this, right, I was like, wait, what is this? I don't know what this is. I don't know what the FR stands for. The Idris, cutter drone. Oh, flight ready. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, yes. So when you think about like who has the most things that need to get done, if you take it from that perspective, it's probably going to be Aegis, if I had to guess. Going down. Well, RSI is who they're doing now, and RSI has the most right now. But they're doing RSI right now, and I'm hoping we get that Apollo and all that stuff. I'm hoping we get the Apollo. I'm hoping we get the Galaxy. I'm hoping we get the Perseus. We already know. I think they already confirmed that they're going to be working on the Perseus. I can't remember when they did that, but I'm pretty sure they confirmed that already. And we already know the Zeus is coming. And I'm hoping these get a rework before they're done with RSI. I'm hoping they get, not a major, they don't need like a major rework. They just need some updates, because right now it's kind of, I don't know. It just feels like a long hallway. Like the whole ship just seems like a long hallway. And I don't think that's really conducive to like what those ships should be about. I mean, you have you walk from the cockpit to the back, and then you have that initial area where it's like, oh, this is where crew hangs out, but it's so tiny. Like, I feel like they could make better use of the rest of the ship if it's just going to be a long hallway anyway. I get that the missiles are in there. I get that the cargo bay is in there, but I don't get why we need all of that space at the top where it's just a long walkway, rather than just having all that underneath the deck like the Phoenix has. Like the Phoenix has cargo underneath all of that other usable space. So I just don't see why these other ships can't do that. So anyway, this isn't about RSI. Who do I think is the next manufacturer? So right now I have it as either Anvil or Drake. So my first thought was Aegis, but then they're almost done with the Idris, right? And Chris Roberts said that they're not working on the Nautilus. Nautilus is not in production. So that would leave what? The Vulcan, the Vulcan and the cutter drone. They're already releasing another Saber. I think they said, well, I don't want to ruin the name for you if you don't already know what the name of it is. But I think that they're releasing another Saber. So really, we only have the Vulcan and the Nautilus when it comes to Aegis, because we know the Aegis is almost done. So I don't think they would make that their priority anytime soon. I think Anvil makes sense, right? So we have salvage gameplay, right? And the other side of the coin to salvage gameplay is repair gameplay. They feed off of each other, right? Because repair folks are going to use RMC to repair ships. And then there's probably they could do different levels of RMC, like quality RMC and stuff, like to make the salvage gameplay deeper. Like maybe if you use certain techniques, the quality of the RMC you get, like maybe it'll be grade A RMC, grade B RMC, all the way down to D. And maybe the techniques you use or how slow you go or something affects the grade of it. And then that stuff is what you use to do repair. And also maybe you can turn other things into RMC, like ore or something, like ore from mining or something like that. You can just turn into RMC through the refinery process, right? And then you can choose which, maybe it takes longer to create higher grade RMC and stuff like that. And I could just see all of that working together. That would give refinery ships a purpose. Like if you have your Expanse or whatever, your Galaxy with the refinery module, and other ships that have refinery options, the Arastra, for instance. That would also give them a reason to finish the Arastra, because now you can use that refinery thing that they have in there. So if that's, and they don't have to do all of how repair will work, but this could be tier 0. And so why am I talking about repair? Because obviously the Crucible would be part of the Anvil push. And so I think the repair gameplay it's like close to, it seems like it's the easiest next level of gameplay. Like the next great feature to put into the game would be repair, because it touches everything. It touches mining when people like mess up their ships, on top of, like I said, if ore can be refined into RMC, it would touch that. Salvage, because if you use RMC from salvage, that's what they primarily get, and then you would be able to sell that directly to people who do repair, and maybe you make even more money. Like I said, they could change the grades, and it would make salvage gameplay deeper. It affects combat, because obviously those are the people who are going to need to get repaired the most. It just makes sense for that to be one of the next major gameplay loops in the game. Now, medical also has a way to go too, but remember, we're talking about after RSI, and they could still do medical while they're focusing on RSI, because they just did the Ursa medevac. They could do the Apollos, and the RSI Galaxy also has medical, right? So they could do all of that while they're still focusing on RSI. So if they don't do medical next, then maybe they just finish those ships and then just say they don't have the medical functionality. But it would make a lot of sense, even if they did medical first, to go from there to repair. So that's kind of my theory for this. And another second strong point that I think that would lead to Anvil being the next one is Anvil. They just did this whole thing with the Hornet series. So you got these Hornets, right, that everybody's upset about, because I bought this Hornet. I love my Hornet, especially, like, I think a lot of people like the Ghost and the Tracker. There's Super Hornet fans out there, but I think most people are really fans of the Tracker and the Ghost. So my guess is they're gonna want to fix that, and it's also fairly easy to fix that, right? Like, they already have the F7C Hornet, like the base Hornet. So all they really got to do is just edit a few of the things that go along with the Hornet, and then they could finish all these up and get Mark IIs out of the door. Not to mention they're looking for money. They're trying to bring a lot of money in the game. That's why they're doing ship sales every single month. So it would make sense to just get these Mark IIs out of the way and have people get their Ghosts and their Trackers and their Super Hornets, all that stuff back. Now, one thing I noticed is the Heartseeker, they didn't say anything about it getting deleted, but my guess is it will get. I think it was just like kind of an offshoot that they didn't really mention. But yeah, I think that would, like, you got all these people who have these Hornets and they were their favorite ships, and they're like, I don't want a base Hornet. Like, I'm not gonna get the F7C Hornet. I'm not gonna get the Mark II Hornet because it's just a base Hornet, even though it's, you know, legitimately better than my well, you know, Tracker or my Ghost. I still would want a Ghost Mark II, right? So I think it would just make sense for them to do that. So on top of the Crucible thing, I think it makes sense for them to get the Hornets back in game as soon as possible, all the variants. On top of that, just finishing up work on all the ships that they've released, and like doing, you know, some reworks on a lot of these Anvil ships need work, right? The Gladiator obviously needs a rework, right? The F8, those need balancing. They need balancing like crazy because they've been, you know, the most OP ship, and down to like, oh, these are trash now, to like somewhere in the middle. And the F8 Lightning needs to be, it's a $300 ship. It's got to be a good fight. It's just got to be great. There's no other way to put it, and it needs to, the balancing might seem a little off on that, but it needs to be a really great ship. The Gladiator needs work. The Hawk needs a light rework. The Hurricane needs to be updated. The Legionnaire, this is another reason why I think that Anvil, this would be my third major reason why I think Anvil is next. The Legionnaire is going to be huge. We're talking about Idris is coming out. We're talking about Polaris coming out. We're finally putting capitals in the game. Why would we not want the ability to board those with the Legionnaire? It makes sense for them to start working on the Legionnaire like immediately after that, after you put the capitals into the game. So that way you can say, here's your absolute way to get onto these ships. And it also completes the gameplay loop, right? It completes the capital gameplay loop in a way where, well, I mean, you still could have NPC crews and AI blades. That's another part of it, I guess. But we'll have engineering, and then we'll have the ability for people to board. So if you're soloing these ships, they're just going to get taken, right? Because you get boarded, assuming you get boarded, right? And then we'll have the ability to multi-crew these ships. It just, to me, I mean, there's more to it, I guess, but I just think it makes sense with where they're going with the game. Boarding is going to be one of the most fun things that I think a lot of people are going to do in the game. And then they're going to sell a ton of these once they announce that, right? So, yeah, and the Liberator is a ship that could be boarded, but on top of that, we're just about to announce, or not announce, but we're just about to get jump points, and we're also getting to a point where these things are going to matter, right? Once we get another system, you're going to need to take your ships somewhere else. So getting your ships to Pyro, your ship might not be able to make it to Pyro on its own. Your ship might not even have a jump drive, right? So it might have a quantum drive, might not have a jump drive, right? So when we think about like what's coming next, I think Anvil makes a lot of sense because of the things that I mentioned, right? And then think about this, right? I mentioned the Vulcan. Why they could slip the Vulcan in there when they're working on the Crucible. Work on both the Vulcan and the Crucible at the same time. And maybe the Vulcan doesn't have its drones yet. And I think that'll be the same thing. Like if we get the Apollo, if we get the Apollos, I don't know if those drones will be working when we get them so much as they'll just have tier 1 beds and they'll have all the internal stuff done, right? The same way that the Carrick doesn't have its drones yet. So yeah, I think Anvil is a solid choice for the next one to do just because of the things I've mentioned. But let me go to my second choice, right? My second choice is going to be Drake. Why? Because you just, like, first of all, Drake is one of a lot of people's favorite, manufacturer. The same way that Anvil is a lot of people's favorite manufacturer. But here's the thing. Think about these ships that are left, right? There's only the Kraken and then these ironclads here, right? So people might say, well, there's not that many ships. But here's what I think. They just did work on modularity when it comes to the I forgot that I forgot to mention that about Anvil too. That was my last reason for the Anvil. Anvil being the next one was the Carrack. The Carrack getting its modularity. And the Retaliator just got its modularity. So obviously they're focusing on starting to get modularity into the game. So that would be another reason that Anvil would be the next one, because boom, we could start working on the Carrack's modularity and get all these people who are super excited about their Carrack, who are now upset about their Carrack, we can get them back into the game with more of this modularity stuff. Not to mention, you're going to sell the modules outside the game. So if you're looking to make money, boom, there's your money right there, because people are going to buy the crap out of those modules for the Carrack. Now the Drake is the same. Part of the reason why I think that they might be next is because of the Caterpillar modularity. I think the Caterpillar modularity might be a little easier to do than the Carrack modularity, because of the way that they're built and how large the ships are in comparison to another. But I also think the Caterpillar is more central to the game, right? I think there's not a whole lot of people. Well, let me say that more specifically. I think more people own a Caterpillar than own a Carrack, just because of the price. I don't think a lot of people are willing to spend. I mean, the Carrack was cheap at a certain point, but overall, I think the numbers are going to pan out to where the Caterpillar, more people will own the Caterpillar just because it's cheaper. So I think them doing that, and I think they get to get some practice with modularity while doing the Caterpillar as well, because when they do the Carrack, people are going to really give a crap about how that modularity works, like to the point where people are going to be really upset. Whereas the Caterpillar, I think there's a lot of Caterpillar fans out there, but I don't think they're they don't rage as much as like some of the people that have the Carracks. So I think that would be an opportunity for them to really put some work in on how they're going to figure out this modularity thing, right? Then I start to think of some more things, right? Like, how many of these ships need, like basic upgrades? The Buccaneer needs a basic upgrade. The Cutlasses have had some decent reworks, but I don't think they're quite finished yet. The Cutters are brand new. It would explain why they had all these new ships, right, for Drake. And then they could start working on the Ironclad and the Kraken, and that could be their next big ships, like the next big ships that come, right? Because we haven't really had a whole lot of news about what the next big ships are going to be. But then they come out with this Ironclad and Ironclad Assault. So that would be, I think it's a weaker case for Drake than it is for Anvil. I'm heavy in the Anvil is the next manufacturer. And there's one more thing that I didn't mention about Anvil, is that Anvil might be getting this. They might be getting a starter, because Anvil doesn't have a starter ship. So wouldn't it make a lot of sense for Anvil to be next and then do their starter ship? Because they would certainly sell a lot of those, right? I guess you could say that, the F7C Hornet Mark II technically could be, a starter ship. The Arrow could be a starter ship. I think the Pisces could be a starter ship. Though there's arguments that those could be the starter ships for Anvil, but I don't think those are really marketed as starter ships, even though they have starter packs. Like I think the Arrow had a starter pack at least, but I know the Pisces had a starter pack. I don't know. I don't. Those don't seem to me as like serious starter ships. The Pisces is a solid ship. I'm not saying they're not solid ships, but I think they need like a flagship, like a flagship starter, right? And that's the only thing I would say. I think they need a flagship starter. I think that like they need their like Avenger Titan, like the Aegis has the Avenger series, and it's like, okay, these could be your flagship, or it could be the Gladius, right? And I think they have their Gladius in the Arrow, right? They have their Gladius version, right? And that that could be potentially a starter, right? But they don't have their Avenger series, and I think that's what Anvil needs, is they need a series of ships that can be your starters. The F7C is like great, but those I wouldn't say are like starters, maybe advanced starters, right? But I wouldn't say those are starters. So I think that's another reason why they could do Anvil next. And then, you know, and this will be the last thing, right? Go through these and see which ships are missing, right? Like Argo is missing the MPUV search and rescue. And then they're missing like some usability on the raft. And I think that's pretty much it. Everything else I think pretty much has its usability. That wasn't a phantom SWAT. That was a mosquito. And then the Banu, right? The Defender has some second pilot woes, and then they have the Merchantman, and that's it. But the Merchantman is basically going to be its own thing. So we don't really have to worry about that. Of course, I don't know why my phone's been going off a lot in my videos. The Merchantman's going to be its own thing, right? We know the Merchantman's not even being worked on right now, so I don't think they would be so adamant about saying that outwardly if they were working on it. CNOU, they just don't have enough ships to work on, right? Like all the Mustangs are done. The Nomad is done. The Nomad needs a gold pass, but really it's just the Pioneer. So when they get to this, they will have to know what heavy construction is going to look like. And I just don't see them doing that until at least 1.0. When we start looking into 1.0 and what 1.0 is going to mean, that's when I'll start thinking that the Pioneer might be coming. And I don't think they're going to work on the Pioneer first. I think we'll get the Galaxy first with that construction module so that they can play around with what construction is. And then once they kind of figure out what works, then they'll do the Pioneer. And the Pioneer will like kind of set the stage, or the Galaxy will set the stage for the Pioneer. And I think that's, you know, I think they've already had the conversations, but now that Todd Pappy is no longer with the company, I think that might be a new conversation that has to be had. Not that they're going to rework it or anything. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense for them to do CNOU. Crusader. The Genesis Starliner, in order for this to be useful, we need to have passenger gameplay. In order for the Spirit E1 to be useful, we need to have passenger gameplay, right? The Mercury Star Runner still needs its data running. But again, what do we have here? Is that, or no, maybe that's, no. Oh, that was another thing that I didn't mention about Drake. Drake was the Herald. The Herald getting its gameplay, the data running gameplay. They could start with, it makes sense to start with the Herald as far as doing data running gameplay and what that's gonna be like. And now that we just did cargo, it makes sense to have data running be part of that next cargo push, because now you know what cargo looks like. Now you can do cargo with data. It makes sense to me. So that was another argument for Drake. But what were we looking at? Oh, did I miss some? Did I skip some stuff? No, I didn't. So I was looking at Crusader. So you have the E1 and the Starliner. So I don't think Crusader ships, I think, and they've given a lot of leeway to Crusader, right? Like Crusader has the Ares series, which everybody was buying those. They had the Hercules, everybody was buying those. The Mercury, everybody was buying those. The C1, everybody, like every time Crusader releases some ships, everybody flocks to them and buys them, right? There's tons of C1s out there, tons of, MSR might be one of the most prolific ships in the entire game. The Hercules is like one of the most prolific ships for whales, like for people who's put a ton of money into the game. And then the Ares is, well, it was prolific just because it was like it was just being able to destroy everything. But I think they finally nerfed it to where it needs to be. So Crusader, I think, is unlikely until we start hearing more about how people are going to be transported. I already talked about Drake. Asperia, what are they? All their ships are here. What reason do they need to work on these ships right now? The Talons are done. The Prowler is done. The Scythe, Glaive, and Blade are the ones they would work on, but those just need updates. And I just don't see a reason for them. Like, it doesn't add anything to the game for them to work on those. The Raylan is would make sense to put into the game now that they have the work on the Sulian. And I think the work on the Raylan should help them figure out what they're going to do with the Banu Merchantmen. Not that, you know, I know they're not from the same company or anything, but I think just working on alien design, I think the Raylan is like a good place for them to start. But why would they do that next, right? It's just a cargo ship. Yes, they're working on cargo gameplay now, but that seems like more of a like, oh, we'll just work on it a little bit. I don't think I have a Raylan, so I of course want it, but I don't think anybody there's gonna be too many people who own a Raylan that are gonna be putting up a fight to make that one get in, right? I don't know what the Sidness is. I've seen this before, but I don't think it's a ship we can buy anyway. Kruger, all their ships are done. I'm pretty sure these are like straight up gold standard ships, right? So I don't even think it makes sense unless Kruger's going to do some new ships, but obviously that wouldn't make sense. Misk would have the greatest, they would have the greatest let's go next thing after, I think, after Anvil and after Drake. Because if you look at their ships, they got the Expanse. Now, the Endeavor I don't think is coming for a very long time. So even if they did Misk next, I don't think we would get the Endeavor. But the Expanse has refinery. The refinery thing, like I said, I think that's going to go heavily with, I think you're going to have like refinery, mining. I think mining is going to be attached to refinery. Refinery is going to be attached to repair is attached to salvage. I think it's going to be like this loop. Like if you get 4 people with all these types of 4 ships, then you could just like trade stuff through and just keep going back and forth and like repairing and salvaging and refining and mining. I think that gameplay loop is going to be all connected. The freelancers need an update, so that would be another reason for them to do Misk next. The B, the D, and the E. We don't have enough cargo right now to really necessitate those. And I could see the E and the D not coming for a while, but the B would make a lot of sense to be put in game right now. But the D and the E, it's still going to be basic, right? Like we know what the whole C was the big one we needed to get in game, and we kind of seen what the internals of that look like. But the D and the E are capital ships, basically, like they're on the capital level. So I think those are going to, I mean, it would be easy to put work in on those and get those in game because their functionality is going to be the same as the C for the most part. So I don't see a reason why not to work on those two. The Odyssey exploration gameplay isn't in game yet, but they put a lot of work in. When they announced the Odyssey, they had already done a lot of work on the Odyssey. So I could see that coming into game too. And this is the main reason I think Misk has a chance, because they just have a lot of ships that just aren't in game yet. But I just don't see them, like when I look at this, the whole B, whole D, and whole E being ships that are cargo ships, that makes sense because they're working on cargo now, but it's not enough, right? Like there's more to it. There's more to cargo. That this would just be being able to do more cargo. And the Expanse doesn't make sense, and like I said, until they do the repair thing. So that's why I don't think it's Misk. Origin, they got what? What ships from Origin are we waiting on? I think we just need the G12. The G12, I think, is all we're waiting on from Origin. Most of their ships are out, and they just did a pass on the 300 series on the flight tuning. So I think we're waiting on the 600i to get its rework, which we know is coming. We know it was worked on, but this was still the old team was working on that. And we know the 85X and M50 are probably going to get a little, like a minor rework. The 100i, those are still kind of on some old stuff. But again, why would we be working on Origin ships right now? What are they going to add to the game? I don't think like we don't need to work on the 600i touring, because again, that's gonna come with like the Genesis Starliner and the E1, because that gameplay is gonna be when we're moving people around, right? The 890 was I think the 890 needed to be done because I think they were trying to sell the 890, but I think the 890 is going to need some updates too. So yeah, I don't see a reason for Origin to be it. And then when we get down here, it's just, you know, the Vandal and Poa, which they got 2 ships. And I'm pretty sure those are pretty far along as far as what they need them to be. So if you ask me, the next manufacturer they'll work on is Anvil after RSI, and then I think it'll be Drake, and then after Drake I think it'll be Misk, and then it can go anywhere from there. But hopefully, looking at RSI, we get these Apollo, we get the Apollo, the Arastra. I'm super excited. I own a lot of RSI ships, and I might even end up owning a Zeus MR. Once I need to see that ship when it comes out. If I don't, it'll either be an Antares or an MR. I need to compare those once they have all their functionality and everything, and both are in game. But I have a Polaris, I have a Perseus, I have an Orion, I have a Galaxy, I have a Constel, I have a Connie, I have an Apollo. So like, there's so many of these ships that I'm like super excited for RSI to be done. But yeah, I do think Anvil is going to be next. What do you think? Who do you think is going to be next as far as the manufacturer? Drop it in the comments. Did I miss anything? Do you think my logic for who's going to be next is solid? Do you think it's trash? What do you think? Just let me know in the comments. All right, that's it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Peace.